And he just starts laying it out. Brah, brah, and you can maybe explain exactly what you were trying to paint for a picture there, but I'm just like, this is not.
He's over there like, I'm listening because it's
God.
Dad, but I don't know what is going on here right now.
It's not going to work.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Ghostcast podcast. I'm your host, JP Ashworth. Other host here, Keith Coleman, and we are with the Dukarts.
Take it over, boys.
Well, my name is Mike Dukart, and I'm here with my son, JJ Dukart. We actually have a booth here at the show as well. But, yeah, what we do is I actually, many years ago, I started studying waterfowl. And I was actually a waterfowl outfitter. And what I did was study the language of the animal, created a deer or a goose calling system that would teach people what the language was and how to interact with them and that kind of thing. So actually to make them better hunters. And to fast forward real quickly, I did a lot of systems like that. And then finally I thought, nobody's done that for white-tailed deer. Mm-hmm. So I went out on a quest 4 years, studied deer, studied their vocabulary, studied their sounds, created a call that could mimic all the different genders from fawn, doe, buck, the right volumes, the right tones, and I studied what they were saying, that type of thing, released it to market, did an infomercial with JJ, actually. He had just got out of college, and the rest is history. I mean, we've become the #1 selling deer call in the market.
I use it all the time. I gave one to my intern for Christmas this last year because I was tired of sharing his spit. You know what I mean? When we'd be in there, and I'm like, dude, you don't need to hit that call that hard, buddy. It's kind of gross. But I ended up giving one for Christmas this last year, and he loves it, dude. Like, he loves it. I actually have a black rack too, so I love it as well.
Pretty much everything we do now is deer. So Deer Society, illusion, calling systems, food plots, scent control, education, just all about the white-tailed deer. Trying to make people more efficient out in the field, education, entertainment. Yep. That's what we do.
And that was a big part of the whole thing. So I would create this system, and it would have I'm going to date myself. Back in waterfall days, it was VHS tape. But then we graduated to this new thing called a CD-ROM. It had video and audio. Mm-hmm. And then they graduated to a DVD, And now, of course, everything's online. Everything's on your phone. So people were just hungry for more and more of that information because, if you watch TV shows and stuff like that, it was like, and you get your reaction and everything else. There wasn't a lot of educational stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we took on more of kind of the in-fisherman kind of deal, how they would be really educational and detailed about, what lure am I using, why am I using it this time of the year, and we kind of went that route and created all this volumes of content, and we called it the Deer Society. Mm-hmm. And that just took on a life of its own. I mean, we average over 80 million minutes a year just in video view alone. It's crazy.
That's incredible.
Thousands and thousands of videos from me basically telling you how to get a tone out of a deer call and explaining to you what that means as a piece of vocabulary to actually showing a 200-inch deer get shot, breaking that down like, hey, this is why I did this, and this is why. So everything's basically educational based.
Right.
And I had to use other people because I'm not this fantastic great hunter like my son. He shoots all the big deer.
He shoots a lot of big deer. Andre the Giant's all I'm saying. There's my favorite one of all time. Andre was a freak, dude.
Yeah, so we partner with just all the best hunters we could find at the time, and you pull a little bit from each hunter. Everybody does it different. Everybody's successful a different way, and you just keep pulling that information in and try to, get that back out through the platform. So everybody has their own way of doing it and shooting big bucks, and we work with pretty much anybody.
Right. Yeah. Was it something in mind that so education obviously was essentially first. Like that was what you really wanted to. It wasn't just building a call. It was building a call, explaining it to somebody, and then the education is where you get the most. What do I say about that? The most. You're grateful for that, I guess. The most. That's where you're humble in that sense. I think.
Yeah. Let me break that down for you. So, as a waterfowl outfitter, I wanted people to be successful.
Right.
Okay. So that part came to me, and so I was learning different and unique ways to become successful, and then I would share that with them. And that's what I found was, killing a bunch of geese that day was great. Hoot, holler. I mean, that's why we do it. But the real fulfillment came from me when I would get feedback from people and say, "Oh
Yes.
my God, I got this call from you. I did what you said," and we just and they're so elated. And that's really what the fulfillment is
Yes,
for me.
yes. I was trying to look for the word fulfillment earlier, and he
Exactly.
found it. But
Other
yes.
people's success.
Yes,
and-
yes.
But I mean, but it's very intense creating a product like that. I mean, it takes
Right.
years,
Yes,
to study that animal and to create the product. Because the key to communication is, and I say this all the time, you have to have the right, it's the way you present it. So imagine we're having a nice conversation here. We're laughing, having a good time. But all of a sudden, if I was in here and I'm screaming, "Hey, you know, that's a whole, it's still, I'm saying words, but I'm communicating completely different.
Right.
So having the right demeanor, the understanding of how to answer a question or to communicate with somebody, the right volume. If I'm yelling loud, that's offensive.
Yeah.
Having those tones, those volumes is probably the most important thing when it comes to communicating. And then the second thing is to understand what you want to say and have that conversation. And that goes to what JJ said. There's more things than you could possibly explain that works and you know what I mean? That is, and I can't say right or wrong way because there's just too much to it. It's never ending.
Right. We're always
Yeah.
progressing too.
Yeah.
There, you hunt one season, it seems like, and the next there's either a new technology, and you're like, man, maybe I should try that. I think something that's fascinating about what you've done with the illusion system stuff is it's still the same product, but you've tweaked it as you go along. You know what I mean? And so even when they're going to your new system, because you guys have a new call out, right? The new that just launched this year, I think. Is that what
Yeah,
it
the
is?
2.0, just you can probably walk through. You help design the whole thing.
Well,
with
yeah,
just slight modifications.
Yeah, the 2.0 is nothing but the birth of a different call because the tooling wore out. We sold hundreds of thousands every year, and the tools are just gone. So if we're going to build a new tool, hey, let's make a couple tweaks here.
Yeah.
So and they're minor, but they make the call. I'll tell you what I did.
Hey folks, JP, and real quick, we want to take a little time to say thank you to our sponsors. The first one being Ape Canyon. For over 40 years, the crew at Ape Canyon Outfitters has been keeping the best of the best safe. Fire rescue teams, law enforcement, the U.S. military, even the Secret Service and Navy SEALs. Yeah, these guys don't mess around when it comes to safety. And now they're bringing that same elite level of expertise to the hunting world with their hunting saddles, ropes, and accessories, all 100% made in the USA at their shop in Butler, Pennsylvania. Give hunters the same confidence and reliability the professionals have trusted for decades. So when you gear up with Ape Canyon Outfitters, you're not just getting solid gear, you're investing in safety, quality, and a rock-solid reputation. Check them out today at apecanyonOutfitters.com. And hey, while you're hanging out in your Ape Canyon saddle, why not send some Mamba arrows downrange? Mamba Archery is straight up changing the game with the first ever centrifugal weave arrows on the market. We're talking next level penetration, insane durability, and laser-like accuracy. Grab them in 1K, 3K, or straight carbon, whatever fits your shooting style. If you're looking to save some cash, the Impala line's got you covered. But if you're ready to step up your game with centrifugal weave tech, Mamba Archery is the way to go. Your wallet and your setup will thank you. So don't wait. Check out Mamba Archery today at mambaarchery.com and grab yourself some Mamba missiles. Big thanks to Ape Canyon Outfitters and Mamba Archery for helping sponsor this podcast. Now back to the show.
What I did is I went with a little different reed material to make it more responsive, lengthened the reed to make it a little bit deeper on the grunt end, changed the slide so that's easier to use when the gloves are on and when it's cold. And those are the basic core things. So they're subtle changes, but they definitely made the call.
Oh, they matter. Yeah.
Yeah, they made
So
the
is
call
this?
better.
Did you do all this off of feedback? Just curious. Like, did people like come to you and say, "Hey, did this," or is this something you just was thinking of?
Both, my
Both.
own experience, but a lot of feedback
Yeah.
as well. See, you'll get a lot of feedback. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's not loud enough." Well, okay, I understand it may not be as loud as most of the calls on the market, but there's a reason for it. Once again, you can't yell at the deer. How many times have you got a little bit of adrenaline, pointed a deer call at that buck because he's walking away? Brr, you hit him with it, and he stops and looks, and then he just like, whoa, okay, fades off. Well, you just yelled at him.
Right.
If you said it, I just talked to an outfitter, and he said, "Hey, your call's the best call, blah, 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 blah." He goes, "I called one in at 100 yards away." And I said, it doesn't take that much volume to get their attention,
Right.
does it?
Right.
And if you do need the volume, rattle. That's what rattling.
Yes.
You can always go up, but if you start up, it's hard to
Go
come
back
back.
down.
You
Yeah.
can't. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't. Take it
You
back.
can't.
You can't,
You
right.
essentially
Exactly.
can't. Yeah.
And what you just said there is my golden rule when it comes to calling. It says, I'm conservative, not as conservative as JJ. I'm conservative, but because I know if I say it, I can't take it back. But,
Right.
I'm also kind of a risk taker too. So I got a really good story about that. JJ, you might want to start it. Remember when I did that growl and that roar thing was the big craze?
Yeah, so I'm more just conservative, try to be real natural out there, just light little vocalizations. And, there's the craze of the roar and the growl and all this stuff. And I'm filming him. We're in the same tree. I'm above him a little bit. And he starts getting out his call. He's like, film me, I'm going to start doing this calling sequence. I think, there's a buck in the area.
Cold calling.
And he just starts laying it out. Brah, brah, and you can maybe explain exactly what you were trying to paint for a picture there, but I'm just like, this is not.
He's over there like, I'm listening because
Oh my
it's
God.
Dad, but I don't know what is going on here right
not
now.
gonna work.
That is gold.
Oh, our signal is a tree to shake the tree, and I'm just feeling this tree just kind of like rattle. I'm like, what the heck? And I look up, and he's just laughing his butt off. He's just laughing. I'm going, what? So in my mind, okay, and I'm experimenting now. Remember, this is a new product, so I'm experimenting, and I'm hearing this growl and all this kind of stuff. So I'm all right. I'm gonna try this stuff. So I know there's this he was like a Pope and Young class, in that range, nothing huge. And I knew he was similarly bedding in this area. And I thought, well, if he's bedding in this area, he's going to get up and get moving. I'm going to see if I can jump him up off his bed. So I do a little bit of light, young buck stuff, and then I did a little doe with it. So maybe if he heard, he'd get jealous. Hey, there's competition going here. Then I got this young buck being super aggressive, being stupid, chasing the doe, burp, 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 burp. So I'm doing all that stuff, doing the doe bleats, and all of a sudden I get a frustrated buck, and I got, roar! And JJ's just, and I'm being serious, man. I mean, I'm like, this is in my head. I can see these deer on the ground. And I look up and that tree shaking, he's just laughing his butt off. And I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I look down and I just feel his hand grab my leg and squeeze like a vice. And that's the sign something's coming in. I look over my shoulder, hear that buck come running in.
No joke.
Running in.
So did you stop laughing real quick? He was like, oh,
Well, then he's got to film now.
And I'm feeling like, are you going to shoot him? Are you going to shoot this one?
And that's another one, So the buck gets there. And so I'm pulled back on him, and I got him in shooting lanes. He's at 20 yards. He's at, he's right there. And I just I don't know what came over me. I just decided I wasn't going to kill him. It was a weird deal. That's the first time that's ever happened to me.
I have this thing where
weird.
some people call it weird or crazy. Like a lot of the guys that I do hunt around, I don't have to shoot the air to kill you. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to pull the trigger. I will draw on almost every buck that comes through, whether he's little, even does. I'll just do it just to do it, just so I'm like, gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I justify some of those 4 and 5.5 year olds that we do keep on that farm.
Yeah.
I'll draw on them like, all right, you're dead. You know what I mean? You were dead. And that gives me that satisfaction, like, okay, you did what you needed to do, let him grow another year type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, were you ever able to maybe figure out why you decided not to?
No. To be honest with you, I didn't. It just came over me. When you get to that point when you know you're going to release, something about me told me that he needs another. Let's give him another year. I don't know why. It's weird. He got upset. He's like, because he got all that footage and all that crazy stuff I did.
But he also, maybe you were feeling the fact that, hey, he just gave me the feedback I needed.
Right.
What I needed for this particular call that I've been thinking about.
And I wonder if maybe that was the thing
like,
that
thank you,
shocked
man.
me. Like,
Appreciate
thank you.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
exactly.
I bet you that
Some
was
gratitude-based stuff, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet that was it. Yep.
Like you said, you didn't need to kill him to prove your point.
Thank you,
And
brother.
I do that all
Now
the
I know.
time. I do that all the time.
But it's interesting because no matter what species, it all comes back down to communication.
Yeah.
How you do it, when you do it, all
So-
the details.
So let's talk about communication. So I'll give you a little story about the deer call. So we get the deer call built, things are going well, and this thing happened called the Great Recession. And it's been quite a few years ago. And there was companies dropping like flies. I mean, companies like Home Depot were going bankrupt, stuff like that. So people, if you lived back then, you'll remember that. You could walk through a store and there was nothing in the aisles and POPs. There was only 1 or 2 items per peg. And so we got shut out of all retail during that time. And I thought, I mean, I'm going to lose my house.
Right.
I mean, I'm $500,000 into this thing and I am no longer in stores. I thought, we're done. It's over. And then the Marine kicks in. You pout for a day or two. Well, I got the best call out there. I know, blah, 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 blah. You know, so I was like, you know what? How does QVC does this? How do they do this stuff? You know? So JJ had just got out of college. Chris, his older brother, who runs the day-to-day operations, he was over in Iraq. And so things were like really pressing, you know, on our family. Tensions are high. I didn't know if I was going to see headlights come up the driveway in the middle of the night, or, you know, you get that 4-digit phone call. You don't know who that is. Every time you answer it and you hear Chris's voice, you're like, oh, that's awesome.
Thank God.
So there was a lot of stress in our life. You know, could be losing our house. JJ gets out. He goes, Dad, he goes, I'm not sure what I want to do. I said, Jay, I'd love you to work for me, but there's nothing I can do. All I can do is I got product. You get on that fancy eBay internet
at the time,
stuff.
fancy eBay.
eBay was the thing, too. You know?
Yeah. Link it to your MySpace.
Oh, man. And so I said, you can have the product, whatever you make, that's your salary, you know? And he dug in. Well, anyway, a friend of mine said, hey, I know somebody from QVC. He was a exec there. He goes, take him out to lunch. Pick his brain. So JJ and I go to lunch with a guy, and he's talking, and I'm writing notes, and all of a sudden the light come on. It's like, oh, man. There's a psychological process happening here. And you need to go through that psychological process. Every person does to make a decision. And I kind of like broke it down into, 6 or 7 elements?
Yep.
And him and I are working on this. And I'm like, JJ, this is it. I said, every single one of these elements has to be in every single thing we do when it comes to marketing or advertising.
Yeah.
And then we decided, you know what, let's make an infomercial. So we're going to make this infomercial. We're watching infomercials on TV. We're using these elements. We're writing the script. We got all kinds of deer footage showing how this stuff works. We got all kinds of, content that tells you what how deer interact with different things. And we put those hunts together with those elements, made a 30-minute infomercial, put it on the regional cable TV, and we started getting orders immediately. And it's like, wow.
It was the aha moment.
It works.
You think a lot of those orders were for people who couldn't find your stuff anymore on the shelves?
That's right.
That's what it was?
Right,
Exactly.
right. The carryover,
So now we're going directly to them. So then all of a sudden you get a phone call from this guy. He says, hey, Mike, I saw your infomercial on the cable channel. He says, I'm from the national media company and we buy airtime. Of course, there was tons of airtime to buy because of the Great Recession.
Right.
He goes, oh, you know what? I'll sell you 3 airtimes for $2,700. And I'm like, I'm going to say his name, Rob. I said, Rob, you're crazy. I buy him for $19 an airtime. He goes, you don't understand. He says, you're going national. And I go, well, I don't know. And he goes, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. He's bartering, right? I'll give you 4 airtimes. I do it for $1,700. So I did the math on eyeballs, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll get some exposure. I'll try it. I was making money. I got to try something.
Right.
He goes, you call me. I'm going to start airing them. So I had to send him money to do it. And by the 3rd airtime, I called him back, and we could not type in the orders in a day that were coming in. We were so overwhelmed. It was the craziest thing. I got a 3-car garage with a pre-chest below, and it was completely full. And I mean, it was crazy. And so I said, Rob, you got to stop it. You got to stop it. He goes, do I have your attention? Rob, you got my attention.
Yes, sir.
So we built a strategic relationship with this gentleman who we became we were in the top 10% of most watched on the entire hunting network. And it was an infomercial. And they're going, what did you guys do?
Right.
I said, it's secret sauce, man. It's
Secret sauce, dog. Secret sauce.
But now we're the biggest, most distributed deer call in the industry.
That's insane, dude. That's incredible to think about because, like, I had some of those moments, like, when I first started doing what I was doing, and I haven't missed a show, and there's times where you just get down, dude. You're just like, man, am I doing the right thing here, you know? And just to hear you guys say that and to see where you're at, that makes me feel good that, like,
it's really easy for that
just
self-doubt to creep in.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. That's when you just got to
That's because of all the
press
factors.
on.
Like, it wasn't just that you had a deer call, and it was in that Great Recession. You had your boy over in Iraq. The other
Right.
one's coming out of college. You were hoping to have, a job for him when he come out. Like, as a father, man, that's a lot. It's a lot on the chest. And then, but you did well. You did the dang thing, dude.
Yeah, well, then I realized, the control freak Marine, we were growing 300% a year. Now, that's astronomical. I mean, we were running out of space, every 18 months? Finally, we ended up building the building. And then it was so crazy at the time that I decided that, you know what? I was getting friction because Chris got out of the Marine Corps at that time, and he was having a little trouble.
Right.
Okay, so I said, well, I know how to handle him. I'm going to make him as busy as he can so you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so I threw him to the wolves. And him and I were American Chopper. And JJ was, who was Mikey?
Oh, man.
I'll take it.
He doesn't look like Mikey, by the way. He looks nothing like Mikey. But yeah, he was the peacemaker that trying to just soothe things over. And then I stepped back and I looked at it. And I'm like, yeah, this ain't any fun.
Right.
This is not right. I said, why did you do this, Mike? You did it for your family. You did it for everything. And I said, when I was Chris's age and when I was JJ's age, what was my capability and where was my mindset? And dude, I could have freaking ran this thing when I was their age. And that's when I realized I got to step back and get out of their way. JJ's taken this to a whole nother level.
Yes.
The Deer Society, product development, everything.
So you guys touched on Deer Society came about to essentially push the product in that sense and get the best hunters to come together to prove it, right?
Yeah, so it started with the infomercial, and then it got to a point where we needed to kind of take that same content and put it out through different channels, and it couldn't be in an infomercial form. So then we kind of spun into Deer Society and have kind of taken that path. So Deer Society is not like the infomercial, but it came from
right.
that.
The idea kind of spewed.
Yeah,
from
we were
channel.
showing what we were doing, how we were doing it, how we were becoming successful, and sharing our secrets. Where a lot of your celebrities, they won't share their secrets. They don't want you to compete with them. You know what I mean? But we were the opposite. We want you to be successful. That's why the company's not named Dukarts.
Right.
It's named something different for that reason. It's not about us. It's about you being successful and taking that approach and that content that JJ's talking about. Well, we were like 5 years ahead of everybody when it comes to social media. Mm-hmm. We were ahead of everybody. Everybody was chasing us. I mean, it's just been a crazy
Well, a lot of
deal.
people have that, that scarcity mindset where if I give away the good stuff or whatever, nobody's going to buy or nobody else is doing it. When
or
actually
somebody will steal it.
the opposite is what happens most of the time.
Exactly opposite.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, but it's in the mindset of the person doing it.
And,
100%.
and there's more to hunting than just calling.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we've developed products. Once again, they got to serve a purpose. Mm-hmm. They got to help you be successful. And if they don't, then why are we making it?
Right. We just had a
that's-
conversation about that the other day, how the industry kind of pushes things out there. They're just like a tweak of an idea, and it's like, it's the same thing as that, dude, but you guys are taking such a different approach. It's kind of crazy to hear that side of this, how this has been brought up, dude. That's amazing.
Well, we started out, like I said, 3-car garage, pre-stress in our house, and now we have a 40,000 square foot building.
That's insane.
So what's 2025 looking? Anything new that you can speak of?
Well, they
coming
got
down
the new
pipe?
call out.
You got to talk to the people that actually work now. So that's on JJ.
So JJ, how you doing, bud?
He's a golfer now.
Mikey.
Mikey doesn't work though. Mikey
Mikey
doesn't-
might be
that's
the
right.
So kind of a long story, but we do have another brand that kind of came under the Illusion name this year, where it's DIY taxidermy stuff. Skullmaster, and this isn't necessarily something that's going to help you hunting, but it's something that we use to preserve the hunt. So we've got a Skullmaster system, tons of new products in the DIY taxidermy space for whitetails, turkey, elk, just probably
But
20, 30 new products.
But the killer is that Skullmaster. I mean, that is the coolest product. And
I think that is so cool for father-son relationships or father-daughter relationships, because if you say a kid goes out there and kills their first deer, right? And it's a lot for you to go and spend $600-700 on a mount now. You guys have given them this opportunity to sit down at a computer together, sit down wherever they're looking at it, and they both get to sit there and pick it together. Yep. That is cool. Like that to me, like that's how I looked at it when I looked at your system. I was like, that's what I was seeing. I'm like, I could sit down with my daughter and she could pick out that, which we did. I'll have to send you guys a picture of it. But that's what we did. We sat down and we looked at it. I'm like, which one do you want? And we got to have that moment after the hunt. You know what I mean? She got to go and pick what she wanted to do or what color she wanted to have. And I thought that's cool. I just thought I'd say that out to you guys.
Yeah, that is cool.
That's very cool.
And we take a lot of feedback in on that product line too. So we're coming out with like the mossy oak bottomlands one. People want that. What else do you guys want? We just ask people walking by, what color do you want? What camo do you want?
Right.
And we take that feedback in, and we'll be dropping some pretty cool stuff. But deer call wise, we do have the Extinguisher 2.0. That's also going to be dropped in mossy oak bottomland this year.
Awesome.
Gunmetal gray. And what else we got for new stuff? That's it for new this year.
For
this
new,
point.
I mean, we've got. We as a team created what we call a micro plot strategy. So it's a food plot, but it's not a food plot. It's more of a strategic system. And so think about it this way: so your deer are bedding in a certain area, and their final goal is to get out to their food, whether it's ag or whatever it is. So then you got that transition area.
Okay.
So you leave them alone in their beds. Never, ever go in their beds.
Right.
You know naturally where they're going to want to go, because you know where they're going to go based on the wind and stuff, and you know they want to go to that cornfield or bean field or acorns or whatever it is. So you create where they normally want to go. You put in a little micropot, a quarter-acre plot. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's a super plot. We have this proprietary technology with these liquids, and we're putting nearly a half an acre worth of tonnage into a quarter acre.
So it's dense.
It is just explodes, and the nutrition value. So they naturally have been going through there. Now they discover this. Oh, check that out. Right. Where did that, cheesecake come from?
Yeah.
Beautiful thing. So they start patterning into it, and then what happens is, then it becomes a communication hub, because they're consistently going to these little microplots. And what we found out is over the last 5 years testing this stuff out is a consistency of movement becomes communication hubs. And I mean, it just changes your deer hunting strategy to a level that, the consistency is mind blowing. Now, that's in the way we do it in our timber spot. It could vary based on where you are.
Right.
You got to be a little creative with it.
Is this
that
something you
core
have to...
concept? It will. If you have wood, I have to knock on it, because here it is on the chair.
Here in the chair.
All right. Last 2 years, every single sit I've seen deer. Every single sit I have seen deer in the last 2 years.
So is that system something you still have to like plow and do everything else, or is that something that's spreadable?
Actually,
you know what I mean, like a throw and grow, or is it?
You can do the easy greens, which is the clover, as a frost eating.
Okay.
But for the most part, if it's a fall planted like brassica plot, you're going to want to work the ground, or at least get the soil prepped where the seed hits the ground and can germinate.
I was just curious because you're saying transition places. A lot of the transition places I hunt are
they're small and hard with equipment.
Hard equipment.
And you can do it be very minimal in the areas that you do it. The box is not big at all. It's only 8 inches, 6 inches wide.
Yeah, 4 pound.
It's nothing to it. And the liquid, you just put in a 2-gallon hand sprayer, and you pour it in there and fill it with water, and you walk it and spray it, and it takes you 5 minutes. So you condition the soil, you neutralize it, then you put in the root booster, and you can do that before or after you seed, correct?
The root booster and foliage fuel, that goes on the plant when it's after it grew.
I
You're
thought
directly feeding the soil starter comes in on the front end.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the root booster went in on the first application, but not. So you can do them both on the second application. But anyway, the foliage fuel goes directly on the plant. So it's absorbing in it. So you don't have to carry in. What I was getting at is the 50-pound or 25-pound, fertilizer and seed. None of that's going on. It's all can be done. You could carry it in a backpack and go do it, as long as you got a rake or something to rough and clean up your area.
That's sweet. That is sweet.
I think you just garden weasel, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It would work. But
I've done it before. I've done it with some of that throw and grow stuff. Just work it up and just.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, half acre might be kind of large for garden weasel, but
that'd be a quarter acre. That's not
a
that
quarter
bad.
acre. Quarter acre. Yeah.
That's I got some spots in mind, and I know I'm going to do that when I go back home. Already, that's perfect.
But
That's
I mean,
sweet.
the performance of the food is unbelievable. I mean, the size of the
Mm.
bulbs on the turnips and the green, the leaves are just gigantic. I mean,
So it competes then with like traditionally doing it the traditional way. It competes just as good.
Yeah, better.
Better?
It's better.
Better.
Absolutely
Oh,
better.
man.
No question about it.
Because you neutralize the soil, so you give it a good start for germination. Plants start to grow, then you feed it with the root booster driving roots down, growing those turnips, and the nitrogen-based one, which blows up the top.
Blows
So
up, yeah.
It's just a system to maximize that
Right.
quarter acre.
Right.
And
That's
it's
insane.
proprietary. It's nobody else is doing it.
That's awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you guys got?
Oh,
for
we
the-
can't
the
be
show?
here for 2 weeks, so we can just kind of cut it off.
No, you're good. No, I was just, if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, that's fine. But we also would love to have you guys down to the studio at some point.
Sure.
Do some hunting or something, or
That's
have
pretty
some
cool.
cheesecake.
Appreciate it. Yeah. All of a
Cheesecake,
sudden,
if you ever
Mike's
go
got
to
a
that-
pattern. He's going down to.
That's perfect, guys.
Well, all right. Well, that wraps up another one. JJ, Mike, we appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you so much, man, for coming on. I
And
appreciate
tell
it.
them where they can find you at.
Thank you, brother.
having
Yeah,
us.
tell them where you can find you at.
All things Deer Society, whether it's social media, Instagram, Facebook. We even have TikTok. I don't use it, but we got a pretty good following on
deal.
TikTok. So you can find us there. YouTube, that's where all the videos are. illusionsystems.com. That's the website. That's where we make all the products and show all the products off.
All right. Awesome. Well, y'all make sure y'all like and subscribe. More importantly, if you know somebody could benefit from this video, share it with them. See you next time.
See you next time, guys.